The meeting is called to order. Let's all stand for flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Corinne, can you read the statement of certification of the meeting?
The meeting has been advertised according to sunshine law.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Venero,
Here.
Mr. Melham, Ms. Guaman,
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Here.
Mr. Banda,
Here.
Mr. Bold,
Here.
Mr. Corvo,
Here.
Mr. Cosarelli, Ms. Rico, Ms. Novarado,
Here.
Mr. Sanabria, Mr. Walsh, Mr. Di Lorenzo,
Here.
Mr. Harris,
Here.
Ms. Tavito.
Here.
Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for the August 9, 2018 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Corinne, call the roll.
Mr. Venero,
Yes.
Ms. Guaman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Banda,
Yes.
Mr. Bold,
Yes.
Mr. Corvo,
Yes.
Mr. Cosarelli, Mr. Novarado,
Abstain.
we're good.
Chairman comments. I'd just like to remind the members that coming up in November is the League of Municipalities down in Atlantic City. If anybody can attend, it's a good opportunity. You guys, for our new members, I think you can get certified down there to be a planning board member, and also keep up to date on any changes that are going on. It's a great opportunity. Under old business, we have memorialized PB 2018-06, 107 Baldwin Place. It's a resolution of the planning board. It was an application to construct a two-family dwelling and a one-car garage on a vacant lot. It was denied. Corinne, could you just call the roll for that, please?
Mr. Venero,
Yes.
Ms. Guaman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Banda,
Yes.
and that would be it for the
We also have memorialized PB 2018-10, 258-260, Washington Avenue, Old Town Hall. And this was to construct 13 residential units in a commercial space on the ground level of an existing building. Corinne, please call the roll.
Mr. Venero,
Yes.
Ms. Guaman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
We have a preliminary investigation to determine whether the property 78-102 Washington Avenue, blocks 8503, lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, is a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. This was sent to us by the council, and I guess we have to vote whether it's going to do an investigation to determine if it is indeed an area of redevelopment. We don't have to vote?
I don't think so. The council's here for redevelopment. You want to indicate?
Dean Donatelli, for the record, the Township Council for Redevelopment. The Township Planners here, CME.
Speak up, please.
Yes, just introducing myself, Dean Donatelli, Special Redevelopment Council for the Township. Just really the board's role at this point is to acknowledge the resolution from the governing body directing the preliminary investigation of the property the chairman had mentioned.
Thank you.
Do we have to reinvestigate that, having?
It's a good question. It's been about a year since the prior.
Has anything changed?
We don't know, so in an abundance of caution, we think it's the best route to study it again.
Thank you. Application before the board is PB 2018-09, 600 Cortlandt Street, LLC.
Sorry about that. I thought you were taking the other case first. My apologies.
So we just announced 600 Cortlandt Street, LLC, 563-579 Cortlandt Street, block 9003, lot 1. and 71-77 Graylock Avenue, Block 9804, Lot 4.
Okay. Frankie? Frank? Dean's phone. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I thought you were taking the other matter first. My apologies. I won't get it.
I think yours is number 1.
Pardon?
The
I thought there was still a redevelopment issue.
We're on a roll here, we're moving right along.
Okay.
Scared.
Council's name is Robert Gassion. The firm is Gassion from 524 Union Avenue in Belleville. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I represent the applicant in this matter, 600 Cortlandt LLC. My client is seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval as well as bulk variances in order to permit the continuation of the warehouse use, which was approved by the zoning board back in 2014 for 13 separate uses. Now, it's a single user who will be occupying 563, 579 Cortlandt Street. They also have off-site parking they are seeking approval for commercial trucks and passenger vehicles. That's 7177 Graylock Avenue. The property is in an IB zone and the use is permitted. The current single user is Fleet Parts and Service INC, which supplies truck body parts to companies such as Penske and Budget. In addition to using the warehouse, Fleet is seeking permission to use 7177 Graylock to park company trucks and allow employees to park their vehicles. The witnesses you'll hear from are Glenn Carantonis of the ownership entity, 600 Cortlandt LLC, possibly Lorraine Burns if it becomes necessary, Fleet, John Halsey, the architect, and William Stimmel, the engineer and planner. I'd like to call my first witness, Mr. Carantonis. Glenn?
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your name, and
My name is Glenn Carantonis, GLENNKARANTONIS.
thank
Mr. Carantonis, what is your business address?
It's 323 Cortlandt Street, Belleville, New Jersey.
And what is your occupation?
Furniture manufacturers.
And are you a member of 600 Cortlandt Street LLC?
Yes, I am.
And does 600 Cortlandt Street LLC own the properties at and on Cortlandt that I referred to and 71 Graylock?
It does.
And for how long have you owned those properties?
3.5 years.
And did there come a time when you obtained an approval to put 13 different uses in that location?
Yes, there was.
And were you able to find tenants for those uses?
At the time, we did not.
And for how long prior to your ownership had the premises been vacant?
Considerable amount of time.
Was it at 6 years at least, to the best of your
Very
knowledge?
minimum, yes.
Now, tell us the name of the tenant you now have.
Fleet trucks.
Okay. And do you know the approximate number of employees that they have?
17, and including the warehouse person, the office personnel, total of 20.
And
Rental,
what are their hours of operation?
8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
And are they also seeking approval to park on the premises at 71 Graylock?
They are.
And will they be parking trucks that they use for delivery of products on that property?
Yes.
And approximately how many trucks do they have?
It's a grand total of five trucks.
And will they also be parking vehicles of employees on that property?
They will, yes.
And is it correct that they have approximately 19 employees?
Yes.
Can you tell us the size of the trucks, these 5 trucks, or the approximate size of these 5 trucks? Are they box trucks, are they tractor trailers, what are they?
The vehicles are described as rack body trucks, rack type trucks, and they size between the smallest one would be 16 feet long, and the largest 20 feet long.
I have no further question of this witness, Mr. Chairman. Stay right there.
Anybody, any members of the board have questions for this witness?
The rack body trucks, are they open trucks?
They are, yeah, they don't have a roof, or they have racks on the side, flatbed type.
Will there be material or anything on the truck? left
Yes,
at night or something?
Yeah, there are. It's truck parts wholesale and manufacturing operations, so they do carry that type of product.
The question was, is the product left on the trucks? That was the
My
question.
apologies. No, it's not. It goes out, gets delivered, comes back. Any product that is not delivered,
The truck will be empty at night.
they'll be emptied over
Do you also own the property at the other piece of property where you park?
there. Nearby, at 323 Corner Street.
You own it, you own it, okay,
I'm sorry, he's misunderstood. Yes, he owns the property where they park the trucks.
yes,
He owns the property where the building's located, and he owns the property he works on Cortlandt Street.
okay.
So one question, that lot is going to be for deliveries, you said? So how is the product going to get from that lot up to,
The vehicles
Corner
are
Street.
parked there simply, but over at 567 at 600 Corner Street is where the operation is based. And the vehicles would travel from the parking lot, a block away to the warehouse. They would be loaded there and they'd head out for deliveries. Upon completing the deliveries, they return back, offload any product that's not delivered, and then return to the lot for parking.
so those trucks will drop, they'll be loaded or emptied at the Cortlandt Street?
At the Cortlandt Street.
And there are there docks at the Cortlandt Street for them to load?
Yes.
I have another question. The warehouse is just warehousing, right? There's no manufacturing, nothing going on there, it's just storing parts?
There is processing, not from scratch, but components would come in and be processed, drilled.
Just that kind of stuff, nothing that would create contaminants or nothing like that?
Oh, no, the product already comes in treated,
Okay.
and then it'll go to final stage of assembly.
Okay. And about the parking lot, what are the hours of operation? What times will the trucks be coming in and out of the parking lot?
The operation, in the morning, the warehouse starts operating at 8:30 a.m., and then everybody's off at 4:30 p.m.
Okay, so nothing late night, nothing?
No big thing.
And the lot itself is gated, locked?
The parking lot is not gated yet, no.
Will it be?
It will be, yes.
Since you mentioned about the hours, one more question.
It-
What time is this going to affect, is there going to be a certain route that the trucks come in and out? Because that's starts school time and dismissal time by number 9, so I don't know if that'll affect traffic down there at all.
Well-
Will trucks affect any of that?
Well, no, they'll come in according to traffic conditions, of course. They might exceed the 4:30 evening.
Well, 4:30 is long after school's out, I'm more worried about the morning one.
The morning, no, because it starts a little bit, operation starts at 8:30.
I think the schools are in by then.
Then they got a load of trucks, I assume.
Yeah.
And what is the total number of trucks again, so the board understands?
There's 5 commercial vehicles.
Any other members of the board have questions of this witness?
Why do you have so many parking spaces for trucks if there's only 5?
Well, initially we started out partitioning the parking lot for 13 different commercial tenants, so we anticipated a higher number of vehicles.
No other members have questions of this witness. Does anybody in the public have a question for this witness? If not, I'd like to proceed, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Mr. Ochoa? I'm sorry, Mr. Halsey, my apologies. Mr. Ochoa is also an architect here, Mr. Halsey is going to testify.
Please raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for that.
John Halsey.
See why? Thank you.
Mr. Halsey, what is your business address
535 Parker Street, Newark, New Jersey.
and your occupation?
Architect.
And for how long practicing in the field of architecture?
Since 1984.
From what school did you graduate? What degree did you obtain?
City College of New York, Bachelor of Architecture, 1980.
Are you a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And just briefly give the board the benefit of your experience and speak up a little. Don't speak to me, speak to the board.
Okay. I first practiced architecture in New York, where I was first licensed, and worked for real estate developers there, and providing housing for the city of New York. And then
We'll accept your witness as an expert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Were you engaged to prepare the architectural plans with regard to this property, both properties?
yes,
Would you describe briefly the existing building?
yes, it's a two-story, 2 to 3-story warehouse, all open space, masonry exterior, brick walls on the outside, and ribbon windows on part of it, loading dock, usual interior facilities for that type of building. It covers almost the entire lot, except for a few recesses.
And are there any plans to expand this building in any way as a result of this application?
No,
They will only be making certain alterations within the building, is that correct?
correct.
And how is the waste or garbage generated from this site contained and disposed?
There's a dumpster and what do you call it, a vendor that picks up the trash.
So they have a private scavenger that picks up the trash?
Right.
And did you have an opportunity to review the letter of Mr. Di Lorenzo with regard to this application?
Yes.
And as a result of that review, did you make changes to the plans?
Yes.
Would you review with the board what changes you made to the plans?
Can I see the letter? There was a recommendation for a decorative fence, which we had put on the plan. There's a storm management plan, which our engineer has submitted. There's lighting, there's a lighting plan on the site plan, and shows the lighting layout, lighting fixture, and the distribution of lighting. We showed a dumpster on the plan that was requested.
Okay. So then, based on Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter, you made certain changes to the plans, and those revisions have been submitted to the board?
Yes.
I have no further questions to this witness, Mr. Chairman.
Any board members have a question for this witness? Anybody in the public have a question? Vic?
Victor Mafucci, 61 Continental. 3 questions. What's on the second floor? You said it was a 2-story building.
He's asking you what is on the second floor of the building?
It's where they manufacture, I'm sorry, no, they don't manufacture, but where they put the assembled parts together for, where they assemble truck parts.
So
Ready
is there
for
a conveyor
distribution.
belt or something? Where they
I'm
have to conveyor belt, or they have to carry them downstairs?
I don't know about the conveyor belts.
Okay.
Can you answer the question? Do you remember? Can you answer the question?
I can.
Can I call another witness?
Please raise your right hand. Please swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Lorraine Burns, B-U-R-N-S.
Your business address, Ms. Burns?
It's 563 Cortlandt Street, Belleville, New Jersey, 07109.
And you are an employee of the company?
Yes, I am.
And what is in what capacity are you employed by the company?
The controller.
Okay. And as controller, are you familiar with what's done on the
Yes, I
second
am.
floor of Fleet Parts and Servicing?
Yes.
Can you please tell the board what is done on the second floor?
It's basically storage for more of the parts.
And there's no manufacturing being done on that floor, is that
There's
correct?
no manufacturing done at all.
I have no further questions to this witness unless some board members do.
Second question, you mentioned garbage, what about recycling?
Yes, there's a recycling plant across the street.
Okay.
We bring our plastic right there.
And
In
the
boxes.
third one, are there or will there be security cameras?
There are security cameras now.
Okay, that was it, thank you.
Any other questions from the public? Not, Mr. Gassion, can we move on?
Thank you. Mr. Stimmel.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
William Stimmel, S-T-I-M-M-E-L.
Your business address, Mr. Stimmel.
P.O. Box 280, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Your occupation.
I'm an engineer and planner, and I'm also a traffic engineer.
From what school did you graduate and what degree did you obtain?
NJIT, bachelor's degree in civil engineering.
Give the board the benefit of some of your experience in the field of engineering and planning.
Certainly. I've been employed for the past 18 years in New Jersey as an engineer and a planner with a particular focus in traffic engineering. I'm a licensed engineer. My license is current. I'm a licensed planner. My license is current. I've testified as an expert in engineering or planning in over 70 municipalities in the state of New Jersey, including Belleville.
Mr. Chairman, I submit that Mr. Stimmel is qualified as an expert in the field of engineering and planning.
Yes, we'll accept your witness.
Thank you. Mr. Stimmel, would you review the existing site?
Certainly. As the prior testimony has indicated, there are two lots comprising the subject property, two lots which do not abut each other. 563 to 579 Cortlandt Street is occupied by a roughly 53,000 square foot warehouse building. The building occupies the majority of the property, although there is a loading dock at the southeast corner of the lot. The applicant is not proposing to make any changes to the interior or exterior of the building as a result of this application. The second part of the property is 71 to 77 Graylock Avenue. It's currently developed with an asphalt paved parking lot which occupies about a third of the lot, the westernmost third of the lot. The site has a full movement driveway along Graylock Avenue and a full movement driveway along Stevens Street, and the remainder of that lot is currently covered with grass.
Would you review the development proposal?
Certainly. Again, the applicant's not proposing to make any changes to the building at 563 to 579 Cortlandt Street. They are proposing to expand the parking lot at 71 to 77 Graylock Avenue. The proposal is to essentially cover the majority of the subject property with asphalt, provide 13 truck parking spaces along the one side of the property, and to provide 17 passenger vehicle spaces on the other side of the property. There's going to be a total of 30 parking spaces proposed on that lot, in addition to some landscaping improvements, fencing, lighting, and drainage improvements as well. The truck parking spaces were designed with an SU-30 vehicle in mind. I didn't do the plan myself, but that's based on my review, so an SU-30 would cover anything along the lines of a typical box truck or garbage truck up to roughly 30 feet in overall length, 20-foot wheelbase, and there's sufficient maneuvering space for that type of vehicle. So that exceeds the size of the vehicle that the tenant is proposing to use on the property.
How about any improvements, any fence or landscaping?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to put a decorative fence around the parking lot. They are proposing to make some landscaping improvements, which are shown on the plans from Mr. Halsey's office. There's also, as I understand it, a drainage plan been submitted which shows inlets collecting the runoff from the increased area of asphalt, directing it to underground seepage pits where stormwater will then infiltrate into the ground, and associated lighting improvements.
And will the lot be repaved and restriped?
Yes.
Can you review the zoning at this location?
Certainly. Both lots are located within the IB industrial zone. Per the Belleville ordinance, there are a pretty wide range of industrial uses permitted, including but not limited to storage of coal and building materials, research laboratories, print shops, office buildings, manufacturing, processing, and treatments of a variety of products, as well as warehouse uses and other uses of similar character to those listed, subject to the determination of the zoning official. Based on that, both the existing and proposed use on the properties is permitted.
Would you review the variances, both the pre-existing and the new?
Certainly. There are a number of pre-existing nonconformities on the subject property which are not going to be impacted by the proposed development. The majority of these actually relate to the building at 563 to 579 Portland Street, including the number of loading spaces. 5 are required, 3 are proposed. That's not going to change. The front yard, 15 foot is required, 0 is proposed, existing and proposed. Rear yard, 15 foot required, 0 feet existing, proposed. And side yard, 5 foot required, 3 foot existing and proposed. And then also the lot coverage requirement where 50% is permitted, 74% is existing and proposed. So none of those are going to change. The new variances associated with the application are the minimum parking setback from the property line, where 5 feet are required, 4 feet are proposed. It's a minimal variance from the standard. It's basically been done in order to both maximize the number of parking spaces that can be provided and provide the best possible maneuvering area for the large trucks located on the site. There is the parking in the front yard where none is permitted and parking in the front yard is proposed. Potentially this could be applied to the loading spaces at Cortlandt Street, but I think the intention was to look at the lot on Graylock. Again, this is done to maximize the number of parking spaces and allow for the most maneuvering area. And then finally, the overall number of parking spaces required, where 89 are required based on the ordinance and a total of 30 are proposed. And essentially, what the applicant is proposing to do is to take this off-site lot, convert it to parking for the warehouse building up the street. So the parking proposed on the site, although it is a new variance, it represents an improvement over the existing condition.
And certainly C2 would apply to that?
Yes.
With the benefits?
I think the applicant would be fair in requesting a C2 flexible C variance to satisfy the positive criteria. I'm going to refer to the purposes of the MLUL, the first of which is to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And I think the general welfare element of that is satisfied because the project advances several goals and objectives of the master plan. First is goal and objective number 2, which is to encourage a balance of land uses, including diversified residential areas, commercial areas, to serve the residents of Belleville and nearby communities, as well as office and industrial areas to provide jobs and strengthen the tax base. Goal and objective number 5 is to provide for the preservation of older residential neighborhoods through code enforcement, to provide for rehabilitation or reconstruction of older non-residential areas, to maintain existing jobs, and to produce new jobs, and to encourage the reuse or reconstruction of existing commercial and industrial structures which have been vacated. Goal and objective number 6 is to encourage the revitalization of business areas through proper land use controls, provision of off-street parking, and provision of other public improvements. And goal and objective 17 is to encourage stormwater management controls for all new developments.
Does the application meet the negative criteria?
It does. There is no detriment to the public good based on what the applicant is proposing to do on the subject properties. There's no impairment to the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. This is a permitted use in the industrial zone. And I think the modifications to the parking area represent an improvement over the existing condition. So I don't see any negative impact with this.
Have you had an opportunity to review Mr. DiLorenzo's letter and Mr. Harris's letter?
Yes, I have.
And do you have any comments with regard to Mr. DiLorenzo's letter?
I'm looking at Mr. DiLorenzo's letter dated June 8th, 2018. I think a number of the comments have been satisfied already by the architect's revised plans or by the testimony provided by the architect. Comment number 3, applicant shall submit a flood certification regarding the parking lot and whether or not it's in a flood zone. I think Mr. Harris has already weighed in on this. The site is in a flood zone, and a certification will be provided as a condition should the board look favorably on the application. Comment number 5 is that a dumpster is not shown on the plan. The revised plan does show a dumpster. I think based on the anticipated use of that site, it's only going to be for parking. I think the applicant would certainly be willing to consider squeezing a few more parking spaces in there with the loss of the dumpster if the board thought that was an improvement. Other than that, I believe all the comments from Mr. DiLorenzo's letter have been addressed.
And have you had an opportunity to review Mr. Harris's letter and any comments with regard to that letter?
I did. Mr. Harris's letter last updated July 24th, 2018.
And just for the record, there was an update from Mr. Harris with no changes. My witness did not get to see that. He did give you an update today.
Yes. Well, I'm going to speak to the July 24th
That's
letter, and
okay.
then if anything else needs to be addressed, certainly will. Again, though, I think a lot of the comments in this letter have been covered already. I'm going to go to page 3 of 4 for 563 to 579 Cortlandt Street. It states that accessibility shall be in compliance with the ADA standards. This will be handled by the construction department. Anything interior to the building certainly is a issue for the code official. If it's a matter of providing off-site parking and requesting a parking space on the street closer to the building, the applicant would certainly be willing to pursue that with the mayor and council to see if they'd be open to providing handicap parking on Cortlandt Street. For 71 to 77 Graylock Avenue, and I guess this is under the same general topic, one van accessible parking stall is required in the parking area. The parking lot is only proposed to serve 563 to 579 Cortlandt Street. There's a pretty fair change in grade there, so the most accessible route from parking to the entrance to the building would really be to provide a street parking space on or in front of the building, and again, we would be willing to look into that.
But if that was not provided, there is certainly room within the parking lot for a van accessible space. Is that not correct?
Certainly. Comment number 3 in that same section, the applicant shall describe and indicate the dimensions of the proposed trucks. I believe that's already been satisfied. Comment number 4, demonstrate that the proposed decorative fence does not interfere with the clear sight distance at the corner of Graylock Avenue and Stevens Street. So I'm going to refer to Mr. Halsey's plan, which is dated March 1st, 2018. I don't think this has been marked as an exhibit.
It has not.
Okay. Does it need to be?
No, because it's in the record.
That's what I thought. I'm going to refer to Mr. Halsey's plan dated March 1st, 2018. It's sheet 3. The decorative fence extends to roughly 6 inches inside the property line. Using a strict application of the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, or AASHTO, standards, the driver's eye position would be 14.5 feet back from the edge of the traveled way. So if you use that standard, the sight line would be obstructed by the corner of the fence, and you'd be able to see oncoming traffic about 170 feet down Graylock Avenue. Realistically, I don't think people are going to stop where their eye is 14.5 feet back from the edge of the traveled way, but I believe we could satisfy that condition without any negative impact to the site plan just by taking the corner of that fence and cutting it off inside the line of the proposed landscaping on both sides of the driveway. So you're pulling back that fence about 10 feet, and then you have more or less unlimited sight distance going down Graylock Avenue. So I think that's a no-harm solution to the issue. And then comment number 9, the previous plan proposed the use of dry wells for stormwater management. Plan does not indicate proposed grading for stormwater management. I think a plan addressing those issues has been provided by Mr. Halsey's office and certainly would be subject to review by Mr. Harris. Other than that, I had no comments on the review letters.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
I have one question. Is the lot sufficient in size for the trucks to pull in and pull out without a need to back in or back out?
The trucks could maneuver within the aisle noted. The first couple of parking spaces would probably need to extend past the right-of-way line, but not into the street or not significantly into the street. So one of the ideas I had with the possibility of taking out the dumpster was just take all those truck spaces and slide them a little bit to the south, so you eliminate that condition. So generally, the trucks can maneuver on the site. There probably would need to be a little slight backing into the street for the first 1 or 2 spaces.
What's the purpose of the dumpster on the lot?
It was a comment from the construction official, and I think he's probably right in the sense that it is required by some element of the code. I think just based on the nature of the use, I don't think it would be used very often. I think anything, you get out of the truck, you throw out your coffee cup, they could just provide a steel drum at that location, and that would satisfy the need.
What do you guys use for refuge now with the warehouse?
There's dumpsters up the street that are located on the existing property, and they've got a private hauler that takes care of that.
Mr. De Lorenzo, do you think there is a need for a dumpster in the parking lot?
Well, it's always a good idea to have one, so the stuff doesn't get thrown around inside the parking lot. I mean, if they put a small one, maybe small enough to get it.
Ms. Burns testified that they drop things off, so there should be a dumpster. I would
They
think.
drop them off at the town yard across the street, I think she said. The recyclables they take
Oh, the
across the street.
recyclables are, okay, sorry.
Sure. I guess you're just proposing a small, maybe, I don't know, 2-yard or a small,
How much space do you actually get back? What can you do with the space if you get rid of it?
Well, the comment from the chair was about the trucks maneuvering in the public right-of-way. So the way the site is currently laid out, probably the first 2 spaces will back out into the street a little bit to be able to pull forward. The dumpster shown could be minimized to the greatest extent possible. These spaces could be slid over a little bit further into the landscape area, and you could pick up some of that landscaping on the other side of the property. I think there's probably a couple of ways that it could be addressed. One would be removing the dumpster. If the board wants the dumpster to stay, then it would just be a minor revision to the plan, just
Can I ask
shifting the
you the
space.
same question again? Why, if there's 5 or 6 trucks, are we proposing so many truck parking spaces?
I don't have an answer for that question.
The answer given by the owner of the property was the original was for 13 spaces because there were 13 separate and
But that's not
distinct
what we have
tenant
anymore.
spaces.
That's
It's
not
not
what
what
we
we have
have
today, but he's obviously being cautious in conjunction with potential expansion. Can we cut one space out? No problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Why don't you just couple it out?
We can cut out one space. Does that do it, though?
That would take care of it, yep.
Make it a little easier.
So we'll go
Yeah,
make it 12 spaces.
just get up to 12 trucks. God bless them.
They only have 5, I believe, now, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 12 is fine.
Then the dumpster could line up with the main drive aisle. The truck could.
Where would you
straight
move
in.
this, which space would be removed, Bill?
Take out number 13. Slide the dumpster to line up with the center of the drive aisle, and then.
Slide those spaces
shift
over.
those spaces over and make up the landscaping loss where you move the spaces from.
Okay.
sounds like a better plan.
I'm not sure if it was already said, are there going to be vehicles parked overnight in that lot?
Trucks.
Trucks will be parked there
I know you're going to have
overnight.
lighting, I know it was mentioned, is there going to be security cameras in that lot as well?
I would have to
There
defer on
aren't
that.
now.
There are no security cameras now at the present time.
Can there be?
Will there be?
Well, they leave them empty, so they're not really concerned about security at that location because they're empty. Obviously, the board can demand it, but I don't think it's necessary because there's nothing on those trucks, and you're only talking about 5 trucks parked in the lot.
It's more about somebody else getting into the lot and doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Will the
Is it
lot be
possible to run a
locked?
camera down the street like that? I mean, that's off-site, I don't know how you would do that.
Is there lighting? Is
I
there
mean, if there's going to be
lighting?
lighting, I'm sure you could
What's that?
somehow control the
They have some cameras?
There's 4 lights according to
I was just asking, I'm concerned because we do have cars get broken into in our town, trucks and vehicles get broken into all the time, I just want to,
Well, we have lighting.
There is lighting proposed, yes.
Is the lot going to be locked?
Well, there's electric going to the site, so they can do a camera.
I don't think they were planning on locking it.
Would they agree to provide cameras? I mean,
I'll try to get an answer. My client has indicated they will provide a security camera.
Thank you. Does any other board members have questions for this witness?
One of the members mentioned about a gate. There's no gates proposed at all. Just so
We are not proposing.
everyone's aware of that. I just want to make sure they're aware of that.
If no other board members have questions of this witness, does anyone in the public have a question for this witness? If not, Mr. Gassion, would you like to proceed?
I have no further witnesses,
What do you want,
Mr. Chairman.
I have a couple of general questions. I don't think it was for him, that's all. I think the woman can probably answer it, if that's all right.
Yes.
I don't know if it was said, is it just a Monday through Friday operation?
Yes, it is. Occasionally on Saturdays from 8:30 to 2. Not every Saturday.
Okay. Now, as far as inventory being delivered to the warehouse, what type of truck delivers that and how often?
All type of trucks deliver to the warehouse. UPS.
18-wheeler?
No, you don't have, you have tractor trailers, that's the concern.
No, but we do have flatbeds that come in.
Okay. And would that only occur during regular business hours,
Yes.
Monday through Friday?
Yes.
All right, that was it.
Thank you, Vic. Mr. DeGarcia?
Yes. My question is more for clarification. Because this already went before the zoning board, and I know because there was 13 uses, that's one of the requirements that came before the zoning board. And now it's only going to be one use, which is allowed. What is the reason why it had to come back before the board? Because
Variances before the variances having to do with the parking.
Oh, had to do with the park.
Site plan approval and variances, 2 variances having to do with the parking.
Okay, now, the last thing I would like to do is make a recommendation as part of this resolution, if it's approved, it would technically take off all approvals that the zoning board already gave, because apparently that use that was allowed or was requested for 13 has now been abandoned. So I think anything that the zoning board approved should be rescinded. I don't think you should have one and both now.
That's for the zoning board, not for us to decide.
No, you misunderstand. He has now abandoned the use. The 13 uses have been abandoned. You only want to have one.
We're not determining if they're abandoned. You guys have to determine if it's abandoned, because you guys are the ones that approved it, correct? In front of the Board of Adjustment?
We approved it, but now they've come before you for a use that's allowed,
Right?
and they're saying they're only going to have one use, not 13 anymore. So you can't have 13 uses approved by the zoning board and one use approved by the planning board. You are eliminating, you're abandoning technically the 13 uses.
I disagree.
Isn't it implied that they are abandoning that
Yeah,
use?
well, the zoning board can rescind the resolution.
it's
You do
not-
it at your level, Jack. Just send a letter and rescind the resolution.
But wouldn't we have to be notified that this was approved in order to have a
Of
vote on
course,
it?
once it's approved, not approved yet, if it's approved, then it'll be notified, then they say, then you rescind it.
Okay.
You follow me? Be easier.
I don't have no problem with
Yeah.
that.
What does that mean?
Any other members of the public? Mr. Frantantoni?
Yes, I like this application. It just shows that the Belleville is an excellent location for industry and business, and we don't need more residential. And I want to thank you for finally letting testimony at the end of the meeting like you're supposed to. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question or comment?
Close this.
I'll make a comment. I'm quite in favor of this being approved.
Thank you. If nobody else in the public has a question or comment, we'll close the public portion. Do you have any more witnesses, Mr. Gassion?
I do not.
We'll
Just
close
a
the
brief,
public
very
portion.
brief summation.
Okay.
Obviously, positive comments from residents. There was a previous approval for 13 uses. Fortunately, my client found a single user, which is, as was indicated by Mr. Frantantoni and by Victor, I mean, you got a benefit here. You got one single good user in the valley in an industrial zone. So I think it's a big benefit. This place had been empty for roughly 6 years. So I think this is, again, a big positive. We'll be before the planning board because the use is permitted. The variances we're talking about are the variances having to do with the parking. There is no external change to the existing building. The master plan said revitalize the business area and provide off-street parking. Not exactly a business area, but certainly an industrial area. We're helping revitalize an industrial area. Cortlandt Street seems to be alive with industry, and this helps keep it alive. C1, it's a unique shape for the property. C2, benefits outweigh the detriment. Certainly, the benefit of allowing the single user to come in place of 13 potential users, or in place of a vacant building, is a benefit to the community, and there is no detriment. The issue with regard to the sightline, my client is willing to move the fence to comply with Mr. Heritz's request. The issue with regard to the dumpster, we found a way to locate the dumpster by eliminating one parking space. The question with regard to security that was raised by the deputy chief, my client is willing to put a security camera there. I think we've satisfied the concerns of the board, and I think this is beneficial for the community. And as usual, I thank the board for their time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Gassion. I guess at this time, would someone like to make a motion for approval of this application with the following conditions? Yeah, we closed the public portion.
With the condition of cutting one space, so we have 12, not 13. Keep the old dumpster. Trucks that will be there overnight are going to have security cameras in the parking lot. And I think that was it.
Move the fence for sight distance.
Oh,
at
the
the intersection.
yeah, for sight distance, the decorative fence.
I'll make a
Were there
motion.
any other conditions?
I think that was it. And of course, the acceptance of Mr. Heritz and Mr. Di Lorenzo's reports.
I'll second.
Corinne, call the roll?
Mr. Venero,
Yes.
Ms. Palami,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Vanda,
Yes.
Mr. Gold,
Yes.
Mr. Corvo,
Yes.
Ms. Notarada.
Yes.
Thank you again for your time and attention.
Thank you. If nobody else has any questions, someone like to make a motion during the meeting?
I just have a little bit of old business.
Sure.
Okay, I was wondering what was happening with the Chandeliers parking lot?
Yes, I told them, and they have to do it, we're sending it back to the board.
Okay, and I also, the parking lot barn that's in Valley National Bank and laundromat right across the street. Years ago when we did it,
Which one?
the board wheel across the street.
By the bank, by the bar.
They've taken it down again, so now anybody, on the weekend can't go into the bank. So I think it should be told that they put it up again.
Did that, they specifically were old, you know. Laundry business had it, not, talking about the bank.
You can go, right? You understand anything about it?
So I think that should be enforced. Is anybody here?
We're the mailbox.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.